Hello, this is Suds. Can you hear me?
Hi. And this is Director Sell.
I can hear you.
Hey, Suds.
I'm Manolo.
All right. We'll wait for them to start the meeting up and then we'll get going.
I can't hear anything from the boardroom.
We haven't started yet.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, that's how it works. It's always disconcerting when, you press a button and it's red. It doesn't seem like a go. I don't know. If it was part of the signal team, we would stop the train, right? That is the only joke I have for the day. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the April Capital Quarter Joint Powers Authority Board meeting. Can we get a roll call?
Certainly. Director Byrd,
Here.
Director Brewer, Director Broadway. Here. Director Chapman. Here. Director Dickinson. Director Foley.
Present.
Director Frericks. Director Frericks. Director Alba Hernandez.
Here.
Director Jane. Here. Director Lee.
Here.
Director Rand.
Here.
Director Raybert.
Here.
Director Sell.
Here.
Director Wright.
Here.
Vice Chair Hernandez.
Present.
Chair Haldesheld.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Mayor Hernandez to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the board meeting of the Capital Quarter Joint Powers Authority Board of Directors. Please note, today's meeting is an in-person meeting here in the Solano Transportation Authority Boardroom, 423 Main Street, first floor, Suisun City, home of the It's outlet, with an option for participation via teleconference. Please note that board members are participating via teleconference or all doing so in locations posted 72 hours in advance of the meeting that are open and available for public participation. You can download the agenda and the presentation materials at www.capitalcorridor.org/CCJPA-board/. All speakers are requested to announce their name as they begin to speak. For public participants who joined in person, if you'd like to provide public comments, please complete a request to address the board form available at the entrance to the boardroom and hand it to the secretary before the item is considered. For public participants who joined by telephone, your microphones are automatically muted. If you wish to speak on an agenda item, please dial *9 to virtually raise your hands when public comment is announced. When it's your turn to speak, you may need to dial *6 to accept the unmute request. For public participants who've joined via Zoom, please use the raised hand feature if you wish to speak. To board members and staff who joined via Zoom, please mute your microphones whenever you're not speaking to avoid background noise. If you wish to make a general public comment on a subject not on the agenda, there will be an opportunity to speak under item 7. However, if you have a comment on an item which is on the agenda, we'll take those comments after the staff presentation and prior to board discussion. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per person per item. Comments which have been received via email by 3 p.m. on Tuesday, April 14th, 2026, have been provided to the board and will be included as a permanent part of the meeting record. Comments received after that time will be provided to the board following the meeting. I just want to add to this, we have a big agenda item, the annual business plan. And so along with along with the 2-minute limit for public comment, if we can keep our board member comments as concise as possible, so we can get through that and that meeting, that agenda item, and then the Amtrak operating agreement. Please consider that. Board members, in order to reduce confusion throughout the meeting when it's time for directors' remarks, I will call on board member comments. Vice Chair Hernandez and I will speak last in the interest of time and to provide an opportunity for equal participation. Again, as I said, try to keep your comments as concise. I know it'll be a robust discussion on the annual business plan and the operating agreement. Next, on behalf of the board, I'd like to extend our deepest appreciation and gratitude to departing Director Tim Shaver, who represented the Sacramento Regional Transit District. We sincerely appreciate his dedication and your support of the Capitol Corridor. With that, please join me in welcoming the newest member of the Capitol Corridor Joint Powers Authority Board of Directors, Rod Brewer. Director Brewer previously served as an alternate member of the CCJBA board since November 2024. I'd like to also extend a warm welcome back to alternate board member Katie Maple, both members representing the Sacramento Regional Transportation District. That concludes the reported share. Thanks very much. And with that, we'll move to the consent calendar. Any directors wish to remove any item from the consent calendar? Any members of the public wish to remove? Is there any?
Chair? This is Suds. I wanted to just make a comment on item number 3. I didn't want to pull it.
You don't want to pull it, but you want to make a comment?
I
Okay.
do.
Ask if there's any public comment on the agenda, on the consent calendar?
There's no public comment on either the report of the chair or the consent calendar.
Thanks for catching that part of it too as well. Director Jane, you wanted to make a comment on
Item number 3.
the Union Pacific Agreement, right-of-way safety and security maintenance? Go
Yeah, I'm really pleased that we're investing in right-of-way security, fences and cleanups of unhoused people's belongings. I've been very concerned about passenger strikes, or trespasser strikes, and I think that this is a really good step. And I, eventually want this to be a routine item that we're continuing to invest in. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your comments. I think we all share that comment, so. Unless there are,
No, I was just going to move the item, Chair, if there's no
Okay.
further comments.
all right, I'm moved and second.
Jane will second.
We need a roll call because we have virtual participants, correct?
Yes, Director Byrd,
Aye.
Director Brewer, Director Broadway,
Yes.
Director Chapman, Director Dickinson, Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Frericks,
Aye.
Director Alba Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Jane,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Rind,
Yes.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sell,
Yes.
Director Wright,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Aye.
Chair Haldeshell.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We'll move to our action and discussion items, and the first one is to adopt the CCJPA draft FY 26-27, FY 27-28 annual business plan and funding requests. Rob, take it away.
Morning, Mr. Chair and Directors. Rob Paget, Managing Director for Capitol Corridor. This first item is I would argue, our most important business item of the year, and it serves as our budget request to the state and outlines our operating plan over the next 2 years. We heard the direction on comments. My team's going to keep our answers short too, to make sure we have plenty of time for all the things on the agenda today. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Leo Sanchez, my deputy, and Kat Relucia, our manager of budget, who will present this item.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Leo Sanchez, Deputy Managing Director. This slide outlines the annual business plan development process. We released the draft ABP for public review in February, and today we're presenting the final draft for board adoption and submission to the California State Transportation Agency, or CalSTA. Following this, we will incorporate Amtrak's final forecast in May and submit the finalized plan in June, and anticipate approval and funding allocation by the end of June. The fiscal year 27 budget will then return to the board in September for approval. Next slide. This slide highlights the key components of the annual business plan. These include our performance standards, operating plan, safety and security initiatives, rolling stock updates, and service enhancements. We also cover customer-facing elements such as amenities, marketing and communications, and ultimately the funding request needed to support the service. Next slide. Here are our key performance goals for fiscal year 27. We are targeting continued growth in ridership and targeting 1.5 million riders and revenue of $32 million. Our goal remains 50% fare box recovery ratio, which aligns with the state's expectations. We're also targeting 90% on-time performance, which continues to be a critical focus area, and maintain a high customer satisfaction, our goal of 91%. These goals reflect both the progress and continued need to improve reliability and service consistency. Next slide. So this chart here shows our actual and forecasted ridership for the past fiscal year of 2025. That is shown in the solid blue line. And then you can see the current fiscal year 26, which is actual through March of this year. And then you see the dashed line projecting the future growth. Great news here is that we've been consistently hitting or exceeding the 100,000 rider mark, with last March culminating in 120,000 riders. And we're continuing to see really positive growth, and we anticipate that in the months and in the next fiscal year. Next slide. This slide outlines our operating plan and planned service levels. So we're back to running full service between Sacramento to Oakland. That is 30 weekday trains or 22 weekend trains, as shown on the slide. As you look in the upcoming fiscal year, our focus is, number one, maintain the same level of service. And number two, look to ways that we can optimize and refine our schedule, specifically looking at improving headways between Oakland and San Jose, and making other improvements for trains arriving and departing Sacramento. Overall, our approach remains the same, which is to optimize the existing service and position ourselves for future service growth in the coming years. Next slide. So on rolling stock, our focus is to continue our truck overhaul program, which is the rail car suspension program. This will continue to improve the ride quality, and we're going to continue to also progress towards the locomotive overhaul of our older generation F59 locomotives. That'll be coming later this summer, and continue to prepare the leased equipment that we received from Caltrain in order to support our current and future service needs. At the same time, we're going to be continuing to work with the state on longer-term fleet modernization efforts and procurement efforts, and ensure that more reliable and sustained fleet growth in the years to come. During the next board meeting in June, Caltrans will be coming to present the state's fleet plan and provide further details on short, mid, and long-term equipment strategies. Next slide. So safety and security, as highlighted by Director Jane, continues to be one of our top focus areas. This year, our goal is to obligate the CRISI grant that we received of $20 million. And that will be a great way to really make a robust network, especially in the areas of highest priority along our corridor, where we continue to see challenges. And we'll continue to do some of the initiatives that we started several years ago, including having our Union Pacific special agents dedicated in those areas that need the most attention. Next slide. On fare policy and payment systems, we are planning a minor fare increase in 2026. And a really exciting thing that I want to highlight is that we really want to focus on our Tap to Ride program, or the contactless payment system that Capital Corridor offers. Our goal is to end the need for the manifest requirement on Capital Corridor. And that's similar to how airline bookings work currently today, where you have to have a full accounting of all the riders on board. And we want to do this in preparation for FIFA this summer. and this will allow for seamless tap on and tap off riding experience. We're nearing this step and we're working closely with our operating partner Amtrak. Tap to Ride will then provide a simple contactless option with no registration needed, aligning with customer experience seen on systems like BART and SAC-RT. We're continuing to grow the usage, and we're going to leverage our current data that we're receiving to inform future fare policy decisions. So looking ahead, we're targeting broader adoption and visibility, including alignment with major events like the upcoming FIFA World Cup. Next slide. So this slide here is great to see our partners at Union Pacific continuing to do improvement on our corridor. We're going to be highlighting a few of the key capital projects and long-term investments that Capital Corridor is continuing to make. Some of these major efforts include the Sacramento-Roseville Third Track, South Bay Connect, and these represent transformational investments on the corridor and the broader rail network. We're also advancing some of the near-term reliability projects like Agnew Siding and Davis Station improvements, and these are going to continue to make improvements on our corridor and really provide a better service for our riders. Next slide. All right, so on service amenities, we're going to continue to enhance the customer experience through a variety of amenities that we offer on board. This includes the passenger information display system and the GTFS feed that we receive that allows you to see bookings on platforms like Google, for example. We're also going to continue to improve our Wi-Fi performance, and we're going to utilize AI-driven monitoring to proactively identify and resolve issues that are seen. And on board, we're going to continue to expand food service options and continue our accessibility improvements across multiple stations. Next slide. On marketing and communications, our team efforts remain focused on growing ridership and ultimately improving our customer experience. This includes advertising, brand awareness campaigns, partnerships, and proactive communications with our riders. We're going to continue to strengthen public relations and community outreach to better connect with the communities we serve. Next slide. So now I'm bundling all of that up together to talk about all of the feedback that we got from the public, and it was great. We had really engaging sessions, both on board, virtual, and feedback that we received through electronic platforms like Zoho, where we collect a lot of our feedback. In total, it was about 116 comments from all of these platforms. They're all included and listed in detail in the board packet you all received. And we've also provided staff responses to the questions that were raised. We appreciate the feedback, and we are always looking at the feedback that we receive from our customers in order to inform improvements that we want to make on the Capital Corridor. Some of the key things that I'll just touch on that you can see on here are service and reliability and scheduling were some of the top things that came up. So riders want to see less gaps between service. I think the general theme is they want to see more trains. They want to see reliable trains. And that really remains some of the top issues that we see. Addressing frequency along midday and evening service were other concerns. And then just general comments about the onboard experience and wanting to see and continue to see the cafe as a way and an amenity that's offered on board was a positive feedback that was received. I think overall, the feedback reinforces that our focus needs to continue on reliability, frequency, and just generally improving the onboard experience as we continue to really make strides on the future of our service. Next, I will hand it over to Catherine Relucio, who will touch on the budget ask for the upcoming business plan.
Great. Thank you, Leo. Good morning, CCJPA Board of Directors. My name is Kat Relucio. I'm the Manager of Budget and Administration. and I will present an overview of CCJPA's funding request for FY27 and FY28, which is included in the draft annual business plan. The primary purpose of the annual business plan update, as defined by our within our interagency transfer agreement with the state, is to request the annual funds required to operate, administer, and market the Capital Corridor service for agreed upon service levels. The largest component of the annual business plan funding request is our train operations budget, which is shown on this slide. The forecast presented for Amtrak operations is derived from the state's financial model and supports full pre-pandemic train service levels that Leo described earlier. We do expect to receive Amtrak's forecast for FY27 by May 15th, after which we will update our funding request as appropriate. So the first line on the slide shows revenue. For FY27, we're projecting $32 million. For FY28, $32.8 million. We have taken a conservative approach to revenue projections for the funding request, especially as compared to how we are performing year to date. And Rob will present the year-to-date performance in his managing director's report. But as a sneak peek, we are so pleased that revenue is performing 7% above what we budgeted. Next, we have Amtrak operating expenses. For FY27, we're projecting $52.2 million, $54 million for FY28. And the third line is the state operating subsidy for Amtrak operations, which is expenses less revenue. And for FY27, we're projecting $20.2 million. The next line, we have train equipment maintenance, which is included for informational purposes and not directly included in our funding request. The forecasts for train equipment maintenance are provided by the San Joaquin's Joint Powers Authority, and the funding for the service has been requested by SJJPA via their annual business plan process on behalf of CCJPA, since the contracts are under them and they will pay for those expenses directly on our behalf. And then lastly, on the bottom line, we're showing farebox recovery, which on this slide is based on the budget above, where we take Amtrak revenue and we divide it by the combined total of Amtrak operating costs plus train equipment maintenance costs. The farebox recovery target specified for passenger rail under the Uniform Performance Standards is set by the California State Transportation Agency, and that target is 50%. We are still below that 50% farebox recovery target, and we will continue working on strategies to reduce costs and increase revenue to get closer to that 50% target. Please do keep in mind that the revenue projections included are quite conservative, so we do hope to perform closer to that 50% target next year. Next slide, please. Okay, this next slide is a summary of Capital Corridor's total annual business plan funding request, which provides all of the resources needed for the administrative management of the service and the resources to execute the operating strategies that Leo described earlier. So on the slide before you, we have FY25 actuals in the second column. We have the FY26 approved budget in the next column, and then we have what we're requesting for 27 and 28. And then details, of course, of the full funding request are included in your agenda packet, beginning on page 21. And then we've got even more detail in the actual annual business plan document that was also distributed with the meeting materials. The total combined funding request for Capital Corridor operations, administration, and marketing is shown in bold, just above the line where it says total CCJPA funding requirement. For FY27, we're requesting $34.4 million. For FY28, $36.1 million. And I will call attention to just a few of the high points. A reminder on that first line for Amtrak operations. The state operating subsidy is expenses less revenue. And then the big jump for direct operations on the next line is primarily due to the strategic funding shift for the right-of-way maintenance and security program, which since the program's inception, it's been funded by state rail assistance funding, And through this funding request, we're proposing to the state that we want to recategorize rail safety to direct operations. And that's for two main reasons. The first is so that we can preserve SRA to use as a funding match to leverage federal and state grants for capital projects. And then, of course, we do believe that this program, the Right-of-Way Safety and Security, is truly an annual operating cost necessary to run our service safely for our passengers and the public. The administration budget provides labor costs to support staffing for operations, mechanical oversight, planning, engineering, and financial support. And it includes the fee that we pay to BART for providing administrative services. These costs are offset by project labor reimbursement charges for both operating and capital charges, and includes non-labor administrative expenses as well. And then moving on to the CCJPA supplemental allocation, which is just below the line on the slide. $1.5 million, which has remained flat for many years, is $1 million budgeted for capitalized maintenance, which is the surfacing of the right-of-way, and $500K for smaller minor capital projects. And then last but not least, the bottom line on the slide is the California Intercity Passenger Rail supplemental allocation. And that supports capital corridor-led projects that benefit the 3 passenger rail services in California: Capital Corridor, the Gold Runner, and the Pacific Surfliner. Within that supplemental allocation line, we have 3 separate budgets. We have the Northern California Onboard Technology, or Wi-Fi, the Passenger Information Display System operational costs, and equipment lease readiness efforts to get the newly leased Caltrain equipment ready for revenue service. The request for IPR supplemental allocation is $2.1 million for FY27, $4.7 million for FY28. And the big decrease from 26 to 27 is largely due to efforts in progress, and will use funding from 26 that will continue and carry over into 27 that will support and complete those projects. So in summary today, we are asking for the board's approval of Capital Corridor's FY27 and FY28 annual business plan and funding request for submission to the Secretary of CalSTA later this month. We will continue to update budget forecasts as additional information becomes available, and submit the final annual business plan to CalSTA in June per the requirements under our interagency transfer agreement with the state. This concludes our presentation, and Rob, Leo, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We have one comment currently. Roland, please go ahead.
Good morning. This is Roland O'Brien, San Jose. I really want to compliment you on this presentation, which is quite remarkable, and especially for its clarity. And I wish that every single agency in the Bay Area would also be publishing their actual fare box recovery ratio, budgeted fare box recovery ratio, and target fare box recovery ratio, especially some agencies who have been told to do so by the state auditor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roland. Any other public comment?
Yes, we do. We have one more currently, and that is Kathy Broussard. Kathy?
Yes, hello. Greetings. I'm Kathy Broussard. Good morning, board. I want to send this message out to Manager Director Rob and Leo Sanchez. I just want to thank you for whatever you're planning to do. I currently use the Capital Corridor services at the Sacramento station, and my main concern is your safety and security in the morning time, and ADA. There's a big issue with accessibility. So at 4:20 a.m., the westbound Capital Corridor train that heads out to the Bay Area, you don't have the train station open for paying customers. We're paying customers. I think that is a big concern. There is currently a Amtrak police case number 260050374 of an incident where I was almost attacked. I've seen people almost attacked because of the lack of security. You have a security guard inside of a building where you don't let the paying customers in the morning, but the security guard is in there and we don't even know if he's awake or asleep, but the security, it needs to have more security and lighting. On the east and west side of the building, it's pitch black dark, and to have customers walk around the side of the building to access trains and the train station is not open for paying customers. I want to see action, and I will be at every meeting until I see this open. For people that need to catch the train at 4:20, the train station should be open. It is currently not open until 5 o'clock. It is very dark, and I am scared for my life every morning, and it's very, very disturbing. So I think that needs to be a priority on your agenda. And again, thank you for everything else that you are doing, but please do something about the security today. A phone call, extra security guards, please, and thank you. Thank you so much. Please.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comment?
That was the last comment.
Okay, great. I'll bring it to the board here. Director Rayburn.
Thank you.
Once a chair, always a chair.
One, I want to extend my gratitude to the staff for a tremendous process. To go out and solicit the input from our passengers is a Herculean task. To do it on the trains, via the web, as well as to provide them with thoughtful responses. And I've been able to glean a number of nuggets from this document of all the customer comments and questions. I want to share a couple of areas that I either have further questions or want to underline. One, the delays due to equipment were sprinkled throughout the comments. And I note that, of course, we restored 5 trains in March. And I feel that maybe we have pulled through the eye of the hurricane. But one of those nuggets that I saw in the responses from staff was that on our June 17th board meeting, we will have Caltrans here to discuss what the fleet availability plan will look like in the future. And I think that is critical, that we're able to ask questions, not just about the equipment that we have, but the equipment that we share with the Gold Runner. So I'm optimistic there. I noted as well that a number of comments seem to flag a 2-hour break in the schedule for the westbound trains in the evenings. So after 5 p.m., if you miss that 5 p.m. train, it's 2 hours. And I think that we need to do everything possible to get people home, without waiting for a full 2 hours. I know that it's a heavy lift because it's going to have to come out of some other train schedule to provide that, but I feel it's important. I also noted a number of places where people with bikes commented on the scooters are scattered everywhere, and heavy e-bikes are taking up space on the floor that usurps maybe the space that others would use to hang their bikes by the hooks. I think that we're going to need to provide guidance at a minimum, and maybe have a process where we reach out to the bike communities throughout the Sacramento area as well as the Bay Area. I was buoyed to see comments regarding the the South Bay Connect, Berkeley to Great America Station commuter said he really wants to see South Bay Connect before 2034. And so with that, I want to ask, is there any progress on the federalization that we can share with the public?
Yeah, Rob Paget, Managing Director. So I'll make a couple comments. First, on South Bay Connect, we are still anticipating that the Quarter ID program will allow us to federalize that project. Basically, all of our projects at that point could be federalized, which would allow us to move into NEPA for some of those projects. So it's a work in progress. It has not started yet, but that message has not changed. I do want to comment on the equipment issue. I did confirm on Monday that we do have the chief of rail coming from Caltrans. That is Caltrans' responsibility. And I know the board has raised that issue, and we share that concern and look forward to having them here. One comment on schedule is that we now run with 8 train sets, and we would be able to run our service a little better with a little better headways with 9. And so the plan is for us to eventually get to 9 when we have sufficient locomotives available to do that. And Leo talked a little bit about some of those minor changes we'll make to schedule, but that we are aware of that issue. And it's largely because of the constraint we have with the number of consists available.
Thank you for that. That's heartening to hear. And I also wanted to touch on the issue of fares, and I think we've all seen incredible inflation over the last few months. I think what comes first to many people's minds is the fuel costs, but in looking at the Amtrak agreement, that's a pass-through. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a pass-through cost. So, and actually in our state ask for funding, the one piece that is always available for a change during the course of the year is fuel, because there's a recognition of the volatility of fuel costs.
But I want to look at the fare increase proposal, and I think there's always strong justification when you see high inflation that those costs are passed on, that we can't just continue to tighten belts and provide service without some reciprocal arrangement. Was the proposed increase or any increase factored into the budget that's being proposed?
Yeah, Rob Paget again. So we do include that in the forecast. As Kat mentioned, we are conservative in our revenue forecasts. But we share that. We think we need to be in a strong position at a 50% cost recovery, meet the expectations of the state, particularly as we go into 2028. We do have a potential cliff in terms of state funding in 2028. We're going to be in a better position to advocate for that funding if we're in a good place with our own budget situation. So we're looking ahead to that, and we want to make sure that overall our budget's in a solid place.
Great. And I'll just wrap up with, I share a lot with my kitchen cabinet, and she really appreciates the cafe car because she's familiar with the Gold Runner, and always comes back and says, I wish I could have had a meal been on a Capitol Corridor in the cafe car. The other element that resonates with my kitchen cabinet are bathrooms. And, I saw a number of comments about, the doors, whether they are locked or not. I've experienced problems. And one of the responses was, well, please inform somebody. Well, asking the victim to go track down a conductor is sometimes a difficult ask, and conductors are very busy and may misplace a request that something be addressed. And I saw something in the Chicago Union Station that was recently refurbished. And in the restrooms was a small panel about the size of a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with 3 buttons on it. And one had a happy face, one was in the middle, and then one had a frown. And people could push that button and it was recording the responses so that you end up with, oh, we do have a problem here and it's been reported. So I feel that there's a solution that could be near at hand. I know that we have 70 train cars and multiple restrooms on each car to add such information to, but it might be something worth looking into. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rayburn. Director Dickinson.
Thank you, Chair. Can you put the slide back up? That was your budget distribution. Yeah, that one. That's perfect. I was just curious. I had a couple questions. I just wanted to ask related to this. First of all, the administration figure is going up from the approved 25-26 to 26-27. I think the staff report said by 19%. So can you tell us a little bit more about why we're seeing that kind of jump in the administration category?
Yes, so the 19% jump in the administration budget from FY26 and FY27 includes a 13% increase in labor costs. And that has to do with inflationary increases as well as budgeted increases through the bargaining agreements as well. And then we have some smaller non-labor increases to some of our professional services agreements.
Okay, so the biggest share of that is the compensation adjustments.
Yes.
And is that largely with bargaining unit members, or is that largely non-bargaining unit members, if you can characterize it?
Well, there's increases across the board for all staff, and then there's the way the increases have been implemented. There's a new approach with step increases, and we saw higher increases as a result of those with the represented members.
Okay, I mean, that's a fairly significant jump. So I don't know, I'm not familiar with what your bargaining circumstances are. So I don't know if you're in the midst of a contract, the new contract, it's got significant adjustments and that contract's been negotiated.
Yeah, and to clarify too, it's not a 13% increase in salaries, just to be super clear about it. So there is also in there, we do have some legal costs in there. We may have to respond with some things related to the UP merger this year. So we have some legal costs in there we don't typically have in there. We also, for some of our projects, we charge staff hours to capital projects. So part of our overall cost is related to how much of our staff is working on capital projects versus general operations overhead. Yeah, so a little bit of it is that as well.
Okay.
Yep.
And just in general with respect to 25, 26, and this is on a normal fiscal year that you're showing us, I believe, not the federal fiscal year, is that right?
Rob here again. So for everything except the Amtrak contract, we are on the July 1st to June 30th fiscal year. For the Amtrak contract, we actually are on their fiscal year. So we do the federal for that.
So you've got a quarter or so left in the normal fiscal year, a little less than a quarter left. So I'm curious in terms, let's just take the administration expenses for a moment. Do they look like they're tracking at the budget or beyond, at the 4.5 or beyond the budget? Do you have a sense of where they're coming in?
Yeah, this is Rob again. So we are tracking we're probably actually a little bit low for the current year because we have some vacancies. We've had some vacancies over the course of this year that we've now filled. But we are tracking a little bit low. I will say, we actually, if you think about our overhead, it includes the marketing budget as well. So it's all essentially the staff of Capitol Corridor. And any sort of, I mean, we pay for some stuff directly that's in that. We also share a call center with BART, which includes 2.5 positions within the BART call center.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's always helpful. I know we're looking at this somewhat in advance, obviously, of the start of the new fiscal year. I've always found it helpful to have at least the projected actuals for the current budget year and then of course the proposed for the next budget year. But if you do come in low, then it perhaps affects your what you're going to see in fiscal 27 as well on the administration side. Be nice to not see that kind of delta between the two. The other thing, one other thing I wanted to ask about was farebox recovery, and I'm only curious whether the farebox recovery has any implications for what we get in terms of state or federal funding.
So Rob here again. So I'll answer that. First of all, we don't get any federal funding. So all of our funding is state funding for our operations support. Our farebox recovery expectation is 50%. We historically hit that number, at least in the several years before COVID.
Yeah.
And the state has not enforced that expectation over the last several years. We are in a good place. There are 3 JPAs. We're in a solid place. Not all the JPAs are as close as we are. The reason we include the fare increase here is we have been pretty aggressive about managing our costs over the last several years. We have squeezed in lots of places to keep our operating costs from escalating as quickly as they might. And we still want to be at that 50% mark. I think the place where we see an issue is when we come to FY28 and our total funding across the 3 JPAs goes down back to the $131 million that it was for a decade. We want to be in a solid place where we can say we are managing our resources carefully and we still need sufficient support to continue to operate the service. So we feel like even though it has not been aggressively enforced by the state, we think it's important going in those conversations that we're at 50%.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I mean, I think we should recognize that this level of farebox recovery is far better than any transit systems I'm at least aware of. In fact, those farebox recovery ratios have fallen quite significantly over the years. So this is not a criticism. This is just curious. And I think in the early 2000s we were at 60+% actually, which was phenomenal. So.
We hit 60% in 2019. That was our peak. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then just a couple other quick things. In terms of the intercity passenger rail supplemental allocation, you have in this year's budget, the current year budget, $9.3 million, and then for the proposed fiscal 27 budget, $2.1 million, and then your actual in 24-25 with $2.8 million. So I'm curious, one, whether you're going to see anything close to $9.3 million in the current year, and two, if you're not going to see anything close to that, are there consequences for next year's budget or beyond or the out years with respect to that?
Thank you for the question. This is Catherine Relucio, Manager of Budget and Administration. And to answer your question, I don't think we're not going to hit the 9.3 million for the current fiscal year. Built into that 9.3 million was funding for technology upgrades that take place over time. And so a good portion of the funding will be for efforts currently underway will continue through FY26 and FY27, and we're able to use the funding over the course of the 2 fiscal years to execute on those projects.
So an example of that is the installation of Wi-Fi on the venture cars. As the venture cars are brought into service, that has been delayed. So when we thought some of that would happen in the FY25 fiscal year, it was extended into the next fiscal year. And so and that we do have the flexibility to use those funds. That's why our ask is a lot lower in that category, because a lot of that stuff is going to roll over into the next year.
And there's no implications for the operating budget otherwise?
No.
Okay.
No.
Finally, I just wanted to follow up on the public comment about security at the Sacramento station in the very early AM, and ask, is there, working either with the city of Sacramento or other parties, is there anything that might be done to address that concern?
We heard the Rob here, we heard the comment, and we're going to check on that. We will get back to you and report back to you on that issue. Yeah, thank you and I appreciate the comment.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. Thanks very much. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Director Dickinson. Anyone else? Yeah, Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, staff, for this presentation. I concur with the public commenter who was praising this type of report and the work that you've done getting this before us today. So thank you. A couple of follow-ups I wanted to touch on with a few of my fellow directors around the fare box recovery. Is the 45% that's in the report, does that include the fare increase? The money coming from the fare increases, or can we expect that to go up, or what's?
The fare increase is has a pretty small impact on the revenue number. Our expectation is we will exceed the revenue numbers that are shown on the table based on what we've seen over the last couple months. But we are trying to be very conservative in our ask.
And are those tied to COLA?
Correct. Yeah. So the fare increase that we're proposing is 3%, roughly a CPI for the year, with an additional 2% for multi-rides. Our multi-rides are deeply discounted, and it is atypical in the industry. And so we want to have some equity across the board and try to maintain our single ride tickets as low as we can. And that does necessitate a little bit of an increase on the multi-rides.
Okay, thank you. And then the move of the right-of-way safety to reallocate that, is that something other partners are doing, or is that unique in of itself?
Yeah, appreciate the question. So we were the first agency to have that program, and we initially started that through our SRA allocation. We get about $6 or $7 million in SRA allocation. That is the only money we have that is allocated to us that we have flexibility to use on capital projects. So it's really important, a really important resource for us to have available. The other agencies have proposed including that in their operating budget. But we agree from a policy standpoint that it is a core part of our operations, and therefore it belongs in our operating budget. That will then give us the opportunity to use SRA dollars to fill gaps in other projects and potentially leverage it with other resources.
That's great. Thank you. Two last pieces. One, I have seen, and I know it's in here, but the marketing I think has been outstanding. I know we've partnered with Honey to do this work, and I think it has been there's been huge paybacks on that, and I really appreciate our efforts in upping the marketing campaign and getting those pieces going. Lastly, I'm curious as we've kind of processed through this, what keeps you up? What's in the horizon? What are some of the looming issues that we're seeing? I mean, this is great, right? But there are some of those big issues that are out there. We know the fiscal, but what else is there that we're looking at that's in the horizon that we're worried about?
Very much appreciate the question. So we're feeling very good about where we are from a demand standpoint. So we're seeing our customers come back, and I think there's much more demand out there than we're meeting right now. What keeps us up at night is equipment and the condition of equipment and our long-term plan for procurement. And that is not fully within our control. We did change maintainers to address to address an issue, make sure we were on top of the maintenance, but we do not have authority over the major overhaul program, nor do we have authority over procurement. So we have heard from this board, and we agree that's an important issue. And so that's why we're bringing Caltrans in June, and we encourage all the questions you have for that presentation. And then the other issue is that we got a 3-year bump in funding. Our funding comes from the diesel sales tax. And we got a 3-year bump in funding. We've been at $131 million for the 3 agencies in California for about a decade with no increase. And we were getting towards the top of that, and then COVID happened, and we got federal support for several years. And then the state increased that. The funding was available, so it was already in the account through the diesel sales tax revenue, bumped it up to about $200 to $205 million over a 3-year period. That period ends in 2027. So in FY 2028, we theoretically go back to the $131 million. So we will be in touch with all of you to help us with that issue in the next year. We feel pretty good about 27. We're coming in with a solid budget, good revenue, but the year beyond that, we certainly want to be ready to go.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Chapman. Anyone else in here before I go to Director Jane and then Director Frericks? Okay, Director Jane.
First I want to commend staff. If you look at this chart, you see the Amtrak operations, in 25 was 29.9 million, 26, it's 22.9 million, and then it's actually still decreasing to 20.2 million. And I believe that is because we did transition our maintenance. So I think that was a, very wise move to do that. But I am a little concerned, as you said, what keeps you up is the age of our vehicles and the overhauls of them. So I wanted to understand where that money goes into this budget. To first, I think you said that there was some refurbishment of the Caltrain lease vehicles. Can you talk to why this number is going down when we have these equipment issues?
Director Jane, this is Leo Sanchez, Deputy Director. So in terms of the Caltrain equipment, there's 2 components of it. We have 3 locomotives that are going to help supplement the service. We're finalizing the testing, and really it's really centered right now just on the PTC elements to get that equipment ready so we can be able to really supplement the existing service, and that will get us to a really good place and prepare us for the overhaul that will come later this year. In terms of the equipment itself, we also have Bombardier cars that are going to be coming into the fold, and we need to equip them with tap to ride readers on board to ensure that it's similar experience for the customer, along with the Wi-Fi system that enables that technology to really be possible, along with minor expenses on the branding, just to ensure that when the rider sees the train, especially in San Jose, they don't think that they're actually hopping on a Caltrain. They know that this is a Capital Corridor train.
I guess what I'm still asking is, why are these numbers going down when we have equipment issues? Don't we have some looming expense for refurbishing? And I don't see that even out to 28.
Got it. So if you look at the train equipment maintenance, we do capture the TASI expense under that line item. And then the other part that you don't see here is the part that the state of California is responsible, or Caltrans is responsible, which is the overhaul of the equipment. That actually is a direct budget that they control, and they work with us as partners on the overhaul of the equipment on that effort. So we are getting ready for that effort. We have some funds allocated at the state level, but they don't directly funnel through us.
Okay, I was confused by the footnote there. Train equipment maintenance is being requested by SSJPA on behalf of CCJPA. So I thought that was an SSJPA expense, but that's actually our expense, but being requested from San Joaquin's.
Yep.
I see.
Correct.
Okay. Then I had a few more questions. On Tap to Ride, right now you have to register your credit card. And I know for FIFA, we want to make it a completely open system. That will end the pilot that we have now. And, I have an issue with the readers, because the readers, it's not really clear when you've tapped on and when you tap off, you almost get the same message on the screen. And it's confusing whether somehow there was an error in the system and you're ending your ride or you're beginning your ride. So I would request that somehow we improve the screen messaging on that and it tell you how much your fare was. I talked about right of way on the Coliseum stop. there's a connector street between BART and Capitol Corridor that is a mess. It's, when I walk that, it's littered with, trash, mattresses, homeless people living in their cars, all kinds of things. Is there anything we can do to clean that right of way up?
Thanks, Director Jane. We are continuing to work with really three different partners. So Amtrak controls the platform itself. And so we're talking to them regularly, and they're out there regularly taking care of that part. The parking lot and the entrance to the station, we work directly with the city of Oakland. And we have an active plan to really go out there on a weekly basis, ensure that we capture conditions. We log these with the city of Oakland, and our manager of transportation behind me, Charles, is directly interfacing with them to ensure that we're getting the proper attention that it needs. But we echo your concerns. We know that we need to continue to stay on top of that station to ensure that folks that are going on or off at that platform feel safe when they're riding our trains.
Okay. Now I know we're increasing fares, but I heard that we have not increased fares for a number of years. So are we kind of behind?
Yeah, this is Rob. So we made a concerted effort to keep our fares stable during COVID. So we're trying to do is stay on top of it, keep it reasonable, but also keep it accessible for as many people as possible.
Okay. Finally, the cafe car is fabulous. It's heavily used, but a couple of years ago, we were really concerned about the expense of the cafe cars. It seemed like it's a benefit to the customers, but we're actually losing quite a bit of money on it. Can you address that?
Dr. Jane, Leo here again. Yeah, so we are still really working aggressively on our cafe recovery ratio. That is an area that still lags compared to how we perform in other areas. So we've done some increases in our cafe offerings, as well as changed some of the menu offerings. So we're still just under 40%, I believe, was the number that I saw recently in terms of our overall cost recovery. So it is an amenity that is subsidized, that provides an overall benefit to all riders, but we definitely still have some room to improve in that area.
Okay. I heard this concept of extra boards. Can you talk about that?
Yes, this is Leo. So extra boards are used for all of the crafts that Amtrak has. So generally they keep their normal staff that provides all of the services. This is both true for train operators as well as the onboard services, as well as station staff. And so they keep a certain percentage of staff available in case they have people that call off sick or have other types of leaves. Those are the extra board staff that is referred to.
So we're paying for people that are just there in case people don't show up.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Director Jane. Director Frerichs?
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to make just a few brief comments. First of all, just want to thank staff. I think a lot of the questions, a number of questions I had have been answered by others, asked by others and answered by staff. I just want to say, overall, I think we've been making a lot of great strides since the pandemic. I mean, the year-over-year increases we had before the pandemic, 10% per year. We dropped over to zero overnight, right? I think you have to keep that in mind in context, and it's just taken the last 5 years to get back to where we were schedule-wise before the pandemic. I did really appreciate Director Rayburn's comments regarding the cafe car. Director Jane, you asked about it too, but I hear from a lot of riders about how the other services are the other train services have gotten rid of that option. And I think it's very important for us to continue the service, obviously continue to try to make sure that we are, not losing as much money and try to make ourselves whole there. But I do think that is a very important option to keep for our ridership. On-time performance obviously is also an issue. And, I know we're certainly working on that, but there's obviously only so much we can do. On the fare box recovery item, we are as well making strides there. Obviously, not as good as the pre-pandemic, but I think that had a lot to do with the massive increases in ridership we were seeing year over year at that time. But I'd say we're clearly headed in the right direction. And then just lastly, over the public comment we received today, but also the 100+ public written comments, suggestions, and feedback, overall, people were very supportive. I think there's obviously suggestions there of things how we can be improved upon, but generally people are very supportive. And I just hear from a lot of riders, up and down the corridor that how grateful they are to have the service in the first place. And obviously, again, and I'm so grateful for the staff, because there's always the staff of this agency is fantastic and really, really small but mighty team, certainly. But, we really put forward a very good product. And so, I don't know when the appropriate time is, Mr. Chair, but happy to offer up a motion to adopt the 26, 27, 27, 28 annual business plan and funding request. Thanks very much.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Director Frericks. I don't see. Okay. I had a couple of questions. So as I look at the annual business plan, I kind of put it in three buckets. There's extension, expansion, and enhancements. So I noticed that there is an extension to Salinas. Yet I also note that the Roseville to Sacramento third track is the oldest capital project in our portfolio. Can you explain to me why we're moving with an expansion or an extension when we haven't finished an expansion or an enhancement?
Rob Paget, good question. Appreciate the comment. So to first say, Sac Roseville is still a priority for our team, and it is a focus. The Salinas extension of service is there's been a request by the state of California. Caltrans has been working on a project to extend service to Salinas. It's in the state rail plan. There has been discussion about that potentially being a Caltrain extension, potentially being a Capital Corridor extension. We show it in this plan at their request, but I will also say that will come to this board and will be fully vetted with details about the impacts to our service quality, reliability, whether we can support it with the operating expenses that we have. For example, this board has supported the 2 additional agents at UP to deal with right-of-way issues. That would require we have more support for that extension as well. We do not want to extend service even for 1 round trip a day, which is what is being discussed, unless we have sufficient capacity to do that. But it's a fair question.
Thanks. And when Caltrans is, when the chief of the rail is here in June, can I ask that question again?
It's certainly within the subject area. That would be part of any sort of fleet plan. You need to make sure that you have enough fleet available to support any service extensions.
Okay. Leo, I may have misunderstood, but under consent, we had a $720,000 budget item for security, but you mentioned $20 million in CRISI funding. Can you help me figure out where I'm lost in translation?
Yes, thanks for the question. This is Leo with Deputy Director. So normally we have been actively involved in improving the right-of-way with cleanup effort along with the special agents that Rob mentioned. And so we have an existing program that's directly carved out of our State Rail Assistance Program. That is what this is referring to. However, we are getting into the next part of this where we are ramping up our efforts to obligate the CRISI grant and then ultimately start construction. So that will decrease the number of funding that we're really using for fencing, for example. However, cleanup efforts on the right of way are not applicable as part of the CRISI grant. That really is just a capital project. So those activities will still need to continue, and so that's why we need that program.
Okay, thanks. Two different amounts, one with 7 figures and one with 6 figures. So thanks for that. And then lastly, I was in a meeting on Monday with former Speaker Pro Tem, former Mayor Steinberg, who gave me some feedback about his experience on the train going to the 49ers Rams game in November. He said the train was really crowded. You know, I think that's a good thing. But I think maybe some of the comments that you received as part of the annual plan, if it's crowded and chaotic and people aren't, can't get to the cafe car, I don't know. Maybe that's maybe that's not a great thing. So I just on behalf of Mr. Steinberg, I wanted to provide that extra public comment. And with
I told him we were having success if there was a crush load.
well, let me say, Director Broadway and I had this conversation, and he said, "Huh? That's an issue." Anyway, I think Director Frericks made a motion. Do I have a second? All right, Director Wren has a second. Roll call vote.
Director Byrd,
Aye.
Director Brewer,
Aye.
Director Broadway,
Yes.
Director Chapman, Director Dickinson, Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Frericks,
Aye.
Director Albert Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Jane,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Rand, Yes. Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sell,
Yes.
Director Wright,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hernandez, and Chair Haldeshelt.
Aye.
Motion passes 15-0.
Yeah, and thank you. Let me use the chair prerogative. What a wonderful conversation. Excellent conversation. We'll move to the next item, which is the annual operating agreement with Amtrak.
All right, and we will try to go fast because I know we went a little long. So this one is our annual operating agreement. You will note that this is for the current operating year. We do have a continuation clause in these contracts that allows us to go beyond the end of the fiscal year. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Charles. He's in place. All right, Charles, we'll take it from here.
Great. Thanks, Rob. Thank you, Board of Directors. Charles Franz, Manager of Transportation. I'm going to make this quick. I think you're all relatively familiar with the Amtrak operating agreement, and I'm just going to make a short presentation on some of the notable changes for this one. First up, we incorporated that last Oakland round trip that brings us up to the full service level of 30 trains per day, which Leo mentioned we had gone to back in December. It removes and softens some language that was in the way of expanding the Tap to Ride program, which we have some aggressive goals to begin expanding, as Leo also mentioned. There was also some weakness in the contract around getting timely repairs to stations that are, fully within Amtrak's control. So we've added some additional assessments and penalties in these areas to ensure timely repairs wherever and whenever possible. It also adds the leased locomotives from Caltrain to our equipment roster to improve mechanical reliability and service delivery. We also made some changes to the language around that equipment roster so that amendments to this particular contract wouldn't be necessary if changes were required, and we can make those more fluidly, and it will improve our operational flexibility in the future for changes to equipment. On the technology front, we're proposing some big changes that we hope will be a first step or an initial step in a major overhaul to modernize the way that Amtrak shares data with us and data goes back and forth. This is not only for better transparency and operational decision-making, but potentially long-term benefits for customer access and notifications as well. Finally, on the finance front, we've added some additional specifications around timelines, communication, and information flow that should help with the time-sensitive nature of our financial reconciliation and reporting requirements. And that is the one slide wonder. We're happy to take any questions.
Wow.
So our ask today, the board is to approve this agreement.
All right. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do. Jared Mitchell. Jared, please go ahead.
Hello, hopefully I am audible. Thank you all for your time and consideration. I am calling in regards to just kind of something that might be addressed in the operating agreement, but it's just about the maintenance of the Jack London Amtrak station and the lighting that extends along Embarcadero. There are 26 light fixtures that extend from Oak Street to Webster Street, for which 20 of the light fixtures have been updated with LED lighting. They work very well. However, the 6 fixtures that lie on the south side of the Bond residential building have not been updated, and it is producing a significant safety concern. A couple weeks ago, exactly 2 weeks ago on April 1st, there was a mental health incident that took place on the train tracks for which the police were called because a young woman dressed in all black sat down crisscrossed applesauce on the train tracks. This happened in the daytime, but had that happened in the nighttime with no lighting, we could have been responding to a very tragic incident. I know that this has gotten lost in the shuffle and there's kind of a crisis of accountability about who's responsible for what. But after years of submitting the complaints and concerns, the community is drastically hoping that we can get those 6 lights fixed, especially with the opening of the new Dave & Buster's across from the railway tracks. So I don't know how that factors in, but I'm hoping that this can be elevated as something to prioritize in addressing with the operating agreement and the response to community concerns. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your comment. Any other public comment?
That was the last comment.
Okay, great. Any directors' comments? Director Rayburn.
Well, thank you very much, Charles, for your report. And I was buoyed to hear that there was a fine regarding station suitability. And I note that there are performance measures sprinkled throughout this document. Were any of the equipment issues that we suffered over the last several months did they result in any fines or added income?
So this agreement is only for the Amtrak operating agreement. So those type of issues, we are working directly with TASI and really the managing agency of the San Joaquins that contracts directly with them. So we are continuing to work on those issues, but those are separate and apart from the operating agreement with Amtrak.
For the train equipment, but for the throughway bus service that we provide, that is addressed as with performance measures as well.
Yes, that is included as well.
Okay, and UP actually gets a stipend if they perform better than expected.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Director Rayburn. Any other directors? Anyone online? I don't see any hands. Director Dickinson moves. Director Rayburn seconds. Roll call.
Director Byrd.
Aye.
Director Brewer.
Aye.
Director Broadway.
Yes.
Director Chapman. Director Dickinson. Director Foley.
Aye.
Director Frericks.
Aye.
Director Alba Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Jade.
Yes.
Director Lee.
Yes.
Director Rid.
Aye.
Director Rayburn.
Yay.
Director Sell.
Yes.
Director Wright.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hernandez. And Chair Haldeshell.
Aye.
Motion passes 15-0.
Fantastic. That moves us to CCJPA capital project update.
Right. And we will cover both 3A and 3B. For 3A, we will hear from Shirley Chen, who will give us an update on this very interesting project. And then we'll be open to questions on any of the capital projects that are in your packet at the same time. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Shirley, who will present this item.
Good morning, Board. This is Shirley Chen. I'm a Principal Planner at the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority and Project Manager for the Alviso Railroad Adaptation Planning Study. Next slide, please. So the Alviso Adaptation Planning Study is intended to improve sea level rise resilience in the southern end of the Capital Corridor route. And currently, the area that we're looking at is between Newark and Santa Clara. This particular section of our route is on the Coast Subdivision, owned by the Union Pacific, and it is currently single track. This stretch serves the Capital Corridor, the ACE service, as well as the long distance Amtrak Starlight, Coast Starlight, as well as UP Freight. This section is a bottleneck for any improvement for any capacity increases that might be needed for increasing service to and from San Jose. So we are looking at this section not just for sea level rise resilience, but also for capacity improvements to prepare for more frequent and reliable passenger service to and from San Jose. And this area is vulnerable to sea level rise because of its proximity to the San Francisco Bay. Next slide, please. So the surrounding wetland complex in this area was previously used for salt ponds, and then it has been turned into a wildlife refuge by the federal government. So it's been, it's seen lots of different uses, and it's been degraded over time. Compared to when the railroad infrastructure was first constructed, the water elevation today is much higher due to subsidence of the surrounding ground level, as well as the historic slow gradual sea level rise. And in some locations, the tracks are only a few feet above water surface levels. Next slide, please. So CJPA staff began studying the potential sea level rise adaptation options for this corridor in 2019-2020 with the Alviso Adaptation Alternative Study. The previous study identified multiple alignment options and adaptation design concepts that would achieve multiple co-benefits, as listed on the slide here: sea level rise resilience, habitat restoration, and wildlife conservation, and increasing operational capacity. And we also conducted robust stakeholder and community engagement with various key stakeholders of different types to educate, get feedback, and establish working relationships for the future. The previous alternative study and the current planning study share many things, such as study objectives and engagement approach. But the planning study will build upon the foundations of the previous study and add more details to the framework, such as available geotechnical data, constructability considerations, more preliminary engineering work, design, and environmental opportunities and constraints. The planning study today will also remove one of the alignment options from consideration, the option 1 in blue that you see on the map, based on key stakeholder feedback. Next slide, please. The planning study objectives, as I said before, there's multiple benefits that we're hoping to achieve with this project: increasing sea level rise resiliency, provide more operational capacity, and provide benefits for local and regional stakeholders in the form of habitat restoration opportunities while minimizing environmental impacts. The Army Corps of Engineers is currently constructing a levee around the community of Alviso to address flooding and sea level rise issues. So the track design with this planning study does take this into consideration, and the new tracks will be designed to be elevated to the top of the levee or slightly above. Next slide, please. The design objectives that we're using, summarized on the slide here: we're proposing to elevate the railroad tracks to be more resilient to sea level rise. We're designing for an additional track to allow for more capacity. And we want to identify geotechnical and constructability considerations in our design, and identify multiple adaptation concepts moving forward. Next slide, please. So these are the 3 adaptation concept elements that we are considering and discussing with stakeholders. The first option is to elevate the tracks on a bridge on piers, which would allow for tidal restoration underneath the bridge deck. The second option is the ecotone, which is essentially a very large embankment with a shallow embankment toward the bayside, which would allow for more habitat restoration opportunities on this very shallow ecotone. And then there's the third concept, which is kind of a combination of the bridge and ecotone embankment, which is a bridge with a refugia island underneath that would allow for wildlife to have some high elevations to escape to during high water events, but also minimize the conflict between train and wildlife. Next slide, please. And these are the three alignment concepts that we are studying with within the study. The first alignment, concept 1, is the closest to the current existing alignment. And concepts 2 and 3 are slightly outside of toward the bayside from the existing alignment. And the important thing to note about concepts 2 and 3 is that these avoid going through the community of Alviso, but would require high elevation bridge crossings to allow for current uses of the Guadalupe River and the slough for boats. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, outreach is a very important part of our study because this is such a complex area. We have conducted multiple community meetings, both virtual and in person, and we continue to conduct stakeholder briefings and receive public comment throughout the duration of our study. Next slide. The current study is going to take 2 years, ending in 2027. And at the conclusion of the study, we hope to have alignment and adaptation concepts that would be ready to carry forward for additional environmental studies for CEQA and NEPA. Future phases of the project are dependent upon future available funding. And this is expected to be a very significant capital project that will take a very long time and need the support of many stakeholders. I anticipate coming back to the board in mid-2027 to present the results of the Alviso adaptation planning study. And we do have a project website if you would like to learn more. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the study.
Great. Do we have any public comment on this?
We do have one or two now. Justin Penman.
Good morning, everyone. I have 2 questions. The first question is, assuming we get this done, who is going to own the right-of-way? I guess I'll wait for an answer for that, and I'll ask my second one.
Go ahead.
Ownership has not been discussed at this time. It's a little bit early, but I think it's going to be a conversation between us and Union Pacific. The understanding is that with a new track constructed, the existing alignment would be removed.
Okay. So are we pushing for CCJPA to own the tracks, or are we just going to be paying to upgrade Union Pacific's infrastructure?
I bet you the answer to that question is yet to be determined.
All right, fair enough. Thank you.
And our next speaker is Roland. Roland?
Thank you. Roland de Brand San Jose. So very briefly, at the time we were laying out a project on the map for 2016 Measure B in Santa Clara County, I made a proposal for a service that would go all the way between Giro. It was a shuttle between Giro and Alviso. And what you're doing here was actually foundational to what we were trying to do, because clearly we didn't have the track capacity to have additional service there. Now I want to share a couple of things. First of all, some of us actually envisioned exactly what's happening with Google right now. They've already invested close to $500 million in Alviso. And I actually met with the people in Alviso. I don't think it was actually, yes, it was through the council member at the time. And the people in Alviso made it very clear they did not want a station essentially in downtown Alviso, which is where your tracks are. So we came up with a location which used the, how am I going to call it, the track that goes to the water, maintenance facility. And we had it actually, pretty much figured out, and it would be less than half a mile from where Google are expanding right now. So I want you to be very conscious of that track and make sure that whatever you do makes it possible to connect to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for an excellent presentation. Rob, are you going to walk us through the rest, 3B? Yeah, let's have Rob go through the rest and then we'll come back to do.
Yeah, I'll let the packet stand for itself. If there are any questions on any of the capital projects, in addition to the Alviso, we'll be happy to take those at this time.
Great. Director Dickinson.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to ask a question about whether of the three potential designs, is there one of them that's superior with respect to the ecosystem and preservation of the or restoration of the wetlands?
Yeah, so we're talking with the refuge and various projects that are involved in restoration about, which concepts they would think would be more appropriate for certain sections. I think in certain areas they would like to see more tidal restoration, so that would maybe be more appropriate for the bridge option. And then in some areas there might be a benefit to having the ecotone. So it really depends on what the restoration goals of the refuge are in the future. So we're currently in discussion about that.
Thanks for that information. I was just thinking as you were describing that there are funding sources, and hopefully this is part of the constellation of what you're looking at in terms of the feasibility of the project and how it might be funded. But for the Bay, there are certainly funding sources for restoration of habitat and wetlands. So taking the best option here might be more expensive. I don't know on the one hand, but it might actually lead to more funding availability on the other.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And that's why we're focusing so much on the outreach right now to build that buy-in early with as many stakeholders as we can to expand our funding opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks.
Director Rayburn. Oh, you just had your, okay. Thank you, Director Rayburn. There you go. All right. Not seeing any other comment. This is a section of the track that's also used for freight, is it not? And I may have missed this in your presentation, which was excellent. Are we partnering with the cost of this, or is this because I've seen some freight trains fall over in high flood events. So
okay.
This is Rob. I'm going to take the money question.
Come on.
So this is a super interesting project because this is the kind of thing that as we have more adaptation issues come up, we're going to have to figure out how to pay for projects like this. There's a freight benefit, there's a passenger benefit, there's a huge ecological benefit, and I think we'll see more programs hopefully come along, and this will be the kind of project that we'll want to fund with those programs that will provide us some resilience on the transportation system, but have all sorts of environmental benefits at the same time. The funding part, that's a little bit out, and I think Shirley's right. This is a big dollar project, and it will require lots of resources from all those beneficiaries of the project.
And probably a condition of the environmental approval and the dollars, right?
For sure.
Okay,
Yep.
Thanks. All right. If we have no other questions on the capital project update, then we'll go to the legislative and funding. Director Paget.
All right. So I'm going to just let the packet stand for itself, but I'm going to mention a couple of things that I want to flag for the board. The first is SB 1136. This is Senator Blakespear bill that is related to special events planning. The details of the bill as drafted currently are challenging to implement because it assumes a level of knowledge about special events in advance that isn't actually feasible. And it also, it raises questions about priorities for an agency. Does an agency prioritize those over other issues? So we are working with the author. California Transit Association has weighed in as they work with author. We've met with the staff there, and we're going to keep an eye on this one. We want to make sure that the intent is positive, but we want to make sure that the execution of it is reasonable. The second is a placeholder bill, Senate Bill 1324. there is a study going on in Southern California that's looking at the governance structure of some of the agencies down in Southern California. This is essentially a placeholder that will take recommendations of a study that's been going on in Southern California. We just want to keep an eye on it and make sure that any sort of recommendations that come from that have a positive impact on our service. And then on the, so that's state side. On the federal side, we are expecting a Union Pacific resubmission of an application to the STB for the merger with NS. We're going to take a look at that and decide whether we want to weigh in on that. But we will carefully review and analyze, and we have consultants on board to be able to help us do that once that happens. And then I'll mention on reauthorization, I'm sure all of you are paying attention to that already, and I'm not probably telling you something you are already well aware of. It seems unlikely that reauthorization is going to happen by September 30th, but the current bill does expire on September 30th. For the rail program, that is significant because a lot of the funding that has come over the last 6 years has been through advanced appropriations. It has not required an annual appropriations process. So if we see an extension of the current bill, that will no longer be part of the funding for the rail program. So as always, we will keep a close eye on DC and see how that plays out. But I'll pause there and be happy to take any questions.
No questions. Managing Director's report is next. Is that correct? Yes.
All right. So this is going to be, we caught up. I'm impressed. Okay. So performance measures. You got a little sneak peek at this earlier. We are seeing a surge in ridership. We are seeing a surge in revenue. We've been steadily coming back from our lows of the COVID days, and we're routinely carrying more than 4,000 passengers a day on our service. Our on-time performance is still not quite back where we are. I think the sentiment was shared earlier about we've had a few rough months with equipment that has resulted in lots of canceled trains, lots of delays. We are climbing out of that. We are in a better place in terms of cancellations. We've had a rough week, but related to lots of things. But overall, that is also on the way up. So we're feeling very encouraged by our high level performance. You go to the next slide, please. And this depicts it month by month, and you can see that the right there, 120,000 in March compares to 94,000 last March. We are definitely getting closer to the good old days of 2019 and prior. You know, the next slide, please. I do want to highlight weekends here. We are carrying many more passengers on the weekends than we did before COVID. So this is a comparison of 2019 to 2026. The blue is 2026. That has continued, and this month is quite a bit above where we were pre-COVID. So really good signs here in terms of the demand for our service. We just need to keep delivering. Next slide, please. So not a good news story this morning is unfortunately we've had 3 trespasser fatalities in the last 7 days. You have heard all the things that our team is working on and will continue to work on. It's a very challenging issue. We appreciate all the support of the board to seek funding and to fund things in the partnership of Union Pacific and Amtrak to try to deal with this super challenging issue. Next slide. So ending on a high note. So you heard a little bit about FIFA, and it's given us the good push that we've needed with our partners to get Tap to Ride to truly be open loop. Even had some good meetings with federal agencies that are involved in that. So we're feeling really good about it. But aside from that, looking forward to serving the events down at Levi Stadium. Our special events have been going gangbusters down there, and we are packing the trains. And that is a good news story because it gives folks an opportunity to try our service, and they often come back after trying that. So we are going to stay on top of that and keep serving a lot of these big events in the region. And with that, I'm going to stop, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Yeah. Bob, do we do public comment on this?
There's no public comment.
All right, fantastic. Directors, Director Rayburn.
I would just like to suggest that on the FIFA that we have Spanish language materials. Thank you.
All right, heard. Thank you.
Director Hernandez.
As someone who grew up in a Spanish-speaking home and soccer was our thing, I 100% appreciate your comment. I wanted to, two things. One, thank you for your report. We had a really great earlier conversation. I did just want to note the ridership back. Fall of 24, that millionth rider for that fiscal year marked a milestone event in the progress since COVID-19 and gaining that ridership. So just marking that because my next comment is around, we all receive the reports of those fatalities. We also receive reports around delays of the trains. And it's not for something for today, but I would like to see in the future an opportunity that we can study any correlation around how our riders navigate those big delays, especially the 2 to 3 hour delays. And I know that the team is so responsive because I can see the work with BART and buses and trying to navigate getting passengers where they need to go. I didn't see so much of that specific storyline in some of the commentary in the packet, but I would like to see an opportunity of how do we engage with the rider about facilitating and navigating and getting those updates of how they're going to get to their next stop in a way that also reminds riders that that's one of those uncontrollable factors, yet we respond. We're responsive. The team is out there. We're working, and we're gonna support members trying to get to their destination as fast as possible, and how we can strengthen that type of communication with our customers.
Yeah, very much appreciate the comment. And in fact, my team's working on a strategy. A lot of the mechanisms for communicating have changed over the past several years. So we will take that recommendation and come back to you with a discussion about how we communicate with customers and handle those delays. And we'll put that on the future agenda.
Great, thank you.
On that topic, I'm curious, and you can respond to it now or say you'll come back. And so in the annual business plan, I read something somewhere about AI. And will that, I'd like to learn more about how that might help with this situation. And certainly,
Sure, we will include that in the discussion.
Great. With that, we will move to Board of Directors reports. Anyone? Yeah, Director Chapman.
Not a report. I just have a question similar to just something coming back. I know the process for it. I'm curious to know, and maybe we can just touch base offline, Rob, but like our policy, who controls the policy around ages of people riding the train, unaccompanied minors, whatever it may be? Had an experience. My son was going from Davis to Sacramento, has gone back and forth to Kings game, was getting ready to come home. He's 15 and a half, was told by the conductor he couldn't get on, was going to call CPS if we didn't come pick him up. He's flown across the country by himself. Just curious who controls that policy, and if there's things that we can look at, or how old it is, or when we're looking at trying to get young riders to take the train and get them used to doing it and get on public transit, and how we interact and engage with that.
Yeah, appreciate the question. And we are required to follow Amtrak policies. We do have some input into those policies, but it is part of being part of that national network. However, appreciate the comment, and we can certainly take back to Amtrak feedback from the board. I think we share, particularly for shorter trips, which our trips are, right? If you're sending somebody across the country, it's a different story than from Davis to Sacramento. Is there any flexibility in some of those policies to look at some of the age requirements for riding?
Okay, thanks.
Director Rayburn, did you?
Well, I wanted to report that over the last several months, BART and the Capitol Corridor has been represented with the City of Oakland as they've been working to shape their encampment abatement policy. What was included in our ask early on was that high sensitivity zones be pre-identified that include 25 feet from active transit or UP railroad right-of-ways. And that was embraced and incorporated into the adopted document yesterday morning. I also wanted to respond to Director Jane made a comment about the Coliseum, and I went out on Sunday in between storms, and all the burnt out vehicles and encampments were removed. That's the end of my report.
Well, that's a real-time update. Thanks very much for that. Director.
Yes, I just have one quick update for the Suisun Fairfield train station. It has been designated as one of two locations. Sorry. Yeah, one of two locations, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, MTC, is going to fund fully the new wayfinding signs that are rolling out for the 9 Berry counties. So having this station be included is a win for not only letting riders know we're here, we're in business, but also it's just supports on our funding needs as well. Thank you.
Well, that's a perfect segue to my comments. On Monday, I participated in the Sacramento Area Council of Governments Mega Region Advocacy Day. That's works with the MTC and the San Joaquin JPA COG on to advocate for the Mega Region Dozen. We had meetings with the chair of the Transportation Committee, who hails from this great city right here in Suisun. And, she was happy when I mentioned the Capital Corridor. She's an active rider of the Capital Corridor system. So, and we met with Assemblymember Rhodesia Ransom and Assemblymember Josh Hoover. So it was a good day we met with, governor's office as well. So. That's mine. I think we're at the point where we're open for public comment on non-agenda items.
We do not have any requests to address the board.
And with that, I think we get the moment which we adjourn to our next meeting on June 17th. 10 a.m. at Barthead. We've come to the point where we adjourn the next meeting till 10 p.m. June 17th. At the BART board offices, headquarters. Thank you very much for everybody's contributions today.